Look out, Karen alert. Okay, in all seriousness, you know what we mean. Everybody is familiar with the entitled sociopath that is Karen, or her male counterpart, Ken. If they aren't being unreasonably cruel to sales assistants, they are playing victim after instigating an unnecessary confrontation. We know how much you all love watching Karens being put in their place. In today's video, we're going to give you exactly that, as we show you the one place Karens can't have their way by bullying everybody into submission: the court of law. Sit back and prepare to be entertained as we show off 5 instances where these Karens and Kens get owned in court. Let's get these rude and irrational people off the streets. Number 5. Karen just cannot shut her mouth. We begin the showcase of the unruly by watching how this arraignment hearing in Ohio descends into chaos. As much as this may feel like a witch hunt of some sort, you cannot deny that Ebony Burks, the defendant in this matter, wasn't totally responsible for the bad interaction between herself and the judge. Honestly, everything was fine at the beginning of the virtual session, which took place all the way back in 2013. Burks had made her pleas during the session and seemed calm. That is, until she heard that she won't be allowed to get in contact with the victims of her domestic abuse charge.
You gonna tell me I can't go to my home?
I just did.
Well, I bet I do.
You can see how the bomb goes off when the judge informs her that she cannot return to the home that she shared with Mr. McRae, her grandfather. The young woman clearly becomes irate the moment she realizes that she cannot return home. Immediately losing all composure, she decides that she was gonna bully the court into having her way by arguing with him. Karen would learn that she wasn't the top dog in the court of law. Right as she starts mouthing off, the judge sentences her to 30 days in jail for being in contempt of court. Now, if you weren't a Karen, we're pretty sure that most of us would have backed off at this point. Not Miss Burks. Flaring with rage, she continued, letting the judge know that she could not be silenced.
Another 30 days, that's 60 days.
So what?
90 days.
So?
Unfortunately, her attitude will see another 30 days added to her sentence, thanks to every word of defiance that she uttered.
You got anything else to say, Miss Burks? That's 3.
By the end of the session, Burks would find that she had to spend 300 days in prison without even completing the early stages of her case. Silly Karen. Number 4. Not everything is funny, Karen. Next up, we take a look at a Karen who thought she was bad, only to find out that she wasn't as tough as she thought she was. It's sad that this even had to happen, though, because this occurred during a devastating case in which Donna Castle was being tried for her involvement in a car accident that occurred in 2017. As she was being sentenced for her drunk driving, which caused the death of Jerome Zerker and the injury of his fiancée Brittany Johnson, Donna Castle, Amanda's mother, decided to make herself the center of attention. Amazingly, as Zerker's family tried to read their witness statements to the court, Donna obnoxiously began to laugh and chatter with her boyfriend.
You can go to. Whoever can sit here at a tragic moment like this and laugh and smile when somebody has lost a family member, this is a court of law. You cannot come down to the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice and act any way you want to act.
Your daughter just caused the destruction of this couple and you're here laughing? Fortunately, the judge wasn't having any of that, so she ordered the couple out of the courtroom. Rather than just leaving quietly, our current Karen decided to show that she would not be subdued so easily. So she hurled some rude words at the judge, the cheek of it all. Either way, the judge didn't hesitate to teach this rude woman a lesson.
You are being taken into custody for criminal contempt. Your disruptive and disrespectful behavior disrupted today's proceedings, and you, ma'am, are going to the Wayne County Jail.
Immediately after being insulted, she ordered for Donna's arrest before sentencing this callous Karen to 93 days in prison for her disgusting conduct. As much as you'd like to at least think that a woman such as Donna would have some resolve, it might disappoint you to learn that Donna returned to the court the next day with red puffy eyes and snot dripping down her nose.
Yes, I deeply apologize for what I did. I was under a lot of stress. And I deeply apologize for what I did in your court.
As she blubbered to the court for forgiveness for her actions. Apparently, she was under a lot of stress. As we roll our eyes, we find that the judge somehow finds some way to feel sorry for her. Following the delivering for mercy, the judge releases our prima donna Karen that same day.
from 93 days to 1 day with credit for time served, and you should be released today.
Hopefully this will teach this rude woman some manners. Number 3, foul-mouthed Ken. We take a look at a Ken who just doesn't know how to deal with someone who has no patience for his nonsense when he finds himself in front of a judge. Rather than treading carefully because he was already on the court's bad side because he missed his last scheduled court session in Ohio, Milton Watts decided that he was gonna prove how dominant he was by losing total control of himself while in the presence of this judge. It all goes awry when Watts reveals his intention to represent himself in this domestic violence matter. This is highly inadvisable, so the judge informed him that it may be in his best interest to hire an attorney.
He withdrew, so you'll have to hire an attorney?
I don't need an attorney.
Even though he has proven to be unable to deal with them after dismissing his former legal representative. The judge would prove to be right when he asked Watts what the situation was in terms of his bond. The simple question confused and frustrated Watts, so much that to everyone's surprise, he began to hurl foul-mouthed insults at the judge.
You want to talk to me about me at bond with me? What do you want to tell me?
About what?
Bond?
Don't really give a to be honest with you.
As you can see, the judge didn't let that one slide. He immediately handed the rude young man a 30-day sentence in prison for his contempt. Rather than backing off, this Ken decided to let it rip.
That's not more.
Unfortunately for him, the judge added an additional 30 days to every insult Watts hurled during his belligerent tirade. Even his friends and family couldn't stop him from landing himself into more and more trouble.
Now I gotta come here and my life up. You.
No, and stop.
At the end of the day, Watts had landed himself a 300-day stint in prison, even before his matter had been heard. Although he was lucky enough to get the sentence reduced to about 90 days in prison, this Ken was able to learn that you don't mess with a judge in their courtroom. Number 2, Froggy Karen. To be honest, the Kentucky court should have expected this when they were dealing with Melissa Hardwick back in 2011. They should have known that she was capable of violence. After all, she was only there because she needed to answer to the domestic violence her estranged husband had brought against her.
Our personal life is your business.
Rude and used to having her way, Hardwick managed to get herself a 10-day sentence to prison for contempt of court because of how disruptive she was during the legal proceedings. Rather than backing off, Hardwick decided to make things a lot worse than it needed to be.
You will serve 10 days for contempt of court. Go now.
Once she heard her 10-day sentence, she shocked everyone in the courtroom by lunging at the judge like a pouncing puma. However, before she could reach the judge, the court bailiffs were able to contain this raging Karen. Enraged, the judge decided to punish this uncontrollable Karen by increasing her sentence to 120 days in prison.
Wait and see.
It should have been more, to be honest, but it could still be enough for this Karen to learn that you cannot be so unhinged in the court of law. Number 1, Impossible Ken. Finally, we turn our attention to a Ken who just didn't know when to pack it up. This occurred during a court session back in 2018. In this court session, Franklin Williams found himself facing the long arm of the law as he faced charges of robbery, kidnapping, and several other unmentionable crimes. Rather than trying to remain as uncontroversial as possible, this man decided to be one of the most insufferable defendants you'd ever see in the court of law.
Play about me getting shackled on the bus for a whole week. Let that play.
Mr. Williams will.
Mr. Williams.
He frequently spoke over people and refused to obey the judge, who had quickly gotten fed up with Mr. Williams' antics.
Again, I'm going to interrupt. Mr. Williams, listen to me. If we have to, I will gag you in 1 second. So listen.
Before long, the judge's patience wore thin, especially as the judge had threatened to gag him if he didn't stop his unruly behavior. Unfortunately, the judge will be forced to deliver on his threats, and soon, Williams was forced to maintain his silence with a gag over his mouth when he wouldn't shut up. The nightmare was over only after William was sentenced to 33 years in prison. If only he had just shut up.